If Luca Guadagnino can do Suspiria, and Jordan Peele and Nia DaCosta can do Candyman, Greta Gerwig can certainly do Black Christmas. Okay, so this video is going to be piggybacking off of my other video where I dove into wishful thinking and dreamed of a world where David Fincher directed a reboot of the 1998 horror film Urban Legend. And now I'm going to continue this whole trend of talking about respected, prestigious directors that I think would be perfect matches for resurrecting iconic horror properties and how those directors could elevate those properties in such an exciting way. I was initially inspired by how Luca Guadagnino's first project after he received Academy Award nominations for Call Me By Your Name was a remake of a cult 70s horror film, and what he brought to it was so different, so interesting, so special. And I'd love to see other highbrow, acclaimed directors do the same with other horror titles. Now, let's talk Black Christmas. Black Christmas, which was directed by Bob Clark, who also directed another Christmas classic, A Christmas Story, was a 1974 horror film set at a sorority during the holiday season and follows an unknown killer stalking the sorority sisters. It's subtle, it's ambiguous, it's chilling. It helped establish the slasher formula but was ahead of its time and completely subversive with its feminist nature. Its protagonist, played by Olivia Hussey from Romeo and Juliet, is a woman embracing her reproductive rights, and the movie was made just a year after Roe v. Wade was passed. And it's been an influential movie ever since. It has been rebooted twice, but each film is very, very different. Like I said, the original film is much more of a restrained, quiet, creepy, slow burn, while the 2006 remake is just a wild, bizarre, balls-to-the-walls gore fest that isn't subtle in the least bit. A lot of people hate this movie, and it is very different and not what it could have been, and abandons the feminist themes, but it's such a fun, bonkers, visually rich roller coaster that I love it. The film was rebooted again in 2019, and while it initially seemed to be going back to its feminist roots with an updated twist revolving around the Me Too movement, but oh boy, yikes. It's sloppy, amateur, juvenile in execution, and jumps the shark in the final act so ridiculously I could not believe what I was seeing with my peepers, and my jaw just fell on the floor. Its feminist message was all it had going for it, but it had nothing smart or clever to say with it. And while I don't mind a message being subtle, because sometimes people who need to hear it most need to be bashed over the head with it to understand, but when I say this film bashes you over the head with its message, it beats you bloody. Speaking of blood, there's no blood because it's PG-13, which makes it feel really safe and not dangerous. PG-13 horror works a lot of the time. The Ring is one of the best horror films I've ever seen, and it's PG-13, but that's because it relies on mood and atmosphere and story. Black Christmas is a slasher. It's supposed to feel like there are no boundaries. I would love a modern Black Christmas film that takes the feminist core of the original and the creepy, chilling, slow burn atmosphere and do something really sophisticated with it. Unfortunately, this will never happen because we've already had 2 reboots within the past 15 years, and both were major flops. But this video is about imagining a more interesting world, so we can envision whatever we want. And I would like to envision a world in which the Academy Award nominated director of Lady Bird and Little Women, Greta Gerwig, directs her own version of Black Christmas. Greta Gerwig is known for her nuanced, rich depictions of young women and their stories, and so basically if she directed a horror film, it would look a lot like Black Christmas. I can only imagine her bringing great justice and prestige to the property, and most likely surpassing the original. I'd prefer a movie, but an HBO or Netflix miniseries could be very interesting. And if this were to ever happen, it would most likely only be possible as a series just because we've already had 3 Black Christmas movies. And you know what? Greta Gerwig could just be a producer or creative force, but her involvement would definitely elevate the property and bring it back to its less trashy roots. And let's not pretend Greta Gerwig doesn't have a history with horror. She was in House of the Devil. Now let's talk about casting. Greta Gerwig likes to reuse her cast members in her movies, so she'd likely use actors like Saoirse Ronan and Timothee Chalamet. But here is a cast that I think would not only serve a Greta Gerwig type movie, but would be very contemporary, very fresh, very exciting, and I'd also just love to see these people do horror. First and foremost, we have to have Florence Pugh. She's already on her way to being a Scream Queen with her role in Midsommar, and she also received an Academy Award nomination for her role in Greta Gerwig's own Little Women. So yeah, we want her. And we can't forget about Saoirse Ronan. She's been in both Greta Gerwig's films so far, receiving Academy nominations for both, and I don't see why they should stop collaborating now. I also want Hunter Schafer from Euphoria in there. She literally hasn't done anything outside of Euphoria, but she really needs to, and I'd love to see her in a project like this. Let's also get Naomi Scott from Aladdin in there, and Odeya Rush from Lady Bird, and Jenna Ortega from the upcoming Scream 5, and Reid from Euphoria and The Invisible Man. I also want Millie Shapiro from Hereditary in there because she doesn't get cast in anything. And we have to have Greta Gerwig's iconic boy duo of Timothee Chalamet and Lucas Hedges. And the house mother needs to be Dern from Gerwig's Little Women. Now that's a cast. I wanted to include Zendaya so bad because when I say I want her in everything, I want her in absolutely everything. But I decided against it because I already cast her in David Fincher's Urban Legend, and I wanted her Euphoria co-star Hunter Schafer in this casting. But if I were in charge, I would give not one F and I would put them both in it anyway, along with the other Euphoria co-star, Reid. So yeah, if I had a bunch of wishes, one of those wishes would be to receive Greta Gerwig's version of Black Christmas. I truly want to know what your guys' film wishes are. What prestigious, respected directors would you like to see direct horror films, and specifically iconic horror properties?